Well, Tasha and Russell, they both love reading books. Tasha and Russell, they both love reading books. Well, what do you do when you share some
Welcome to the
love? Well, you
106th
start a
episode of
club,
the
you start a
ABC
club
Pod,
named
the
Don't
Adult
Book
Book
Club,
Club
and a
with
club
Taja and
book
Russell. I am Russell. She
and
is
a
Taja.
podcast.
Hi.
Hi, and welcome back, everybody, to the podcast where we drink and we read things. And in this episode, we read Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. But before we get to that, it has been 2 weeks. Taja, what have you been getting up to?
Oh, gosh, not much. Um, Adulting a little bit. We have a thermostat upstairs in our bedroom that controls like the baseboard heat for the upstairs. And I've replaced the batteries like 11 billion times and discovered that there must be something wrong with them because it's like not long after I do it, the batteries get all wonky and like acidic or whatever. I don't know. There's something going on with them. So the thing is broken. So I had to like go online. It's a super old one. I had to get a replacement and figure that out, which is apparently awesome that it's super simple. There's only like two wires. So I replaced that this morning and the heat functions, which like,
Yay!
yay. Um, and then I had the Bob's furniture situation from this morning. My our new couch that we'd gotten in like the end of September had like a rip in the seam, and so I'd called to get a replacement for that little bit of it. And they came to do that today, and my parents were gracious enough to like be in the home when I couldn't be to sign for it and stuff. But then when they left, they like turned the lights out in the living room in a weird way that when I got home, the light wasn't turning on. And I was like, did I screw up the outlets when I was like, or the light switches? Like that's one that I'd had to replace relatively recently. So did I screw something up? It's been working fine up until now. I put new light bulbs in and I hate the way they look. You know, when it's like a different
Yep.
shade of
Yep.
light?
And you never know which ones you bought in the past because you're like, oh,
Exactly.
I always go daylight. And you never go daylight.
No, and I think mine are just like soft white, which
Yeah.
like to me, like this light that I'm under right now feels soft, but it's like a totally different kind of soft. It's like
Yeah.
how when you go to a paint store, there's 11 billion versions of white.
Yeah.
It feels like that. So I've replaced them, and now I'm questioning whether or not the light bulbs were actually dead. Because like, what's the chance that both of them win at the same? I don't know. And I'm overthinking it now, but I'm gonna have to change them back out and see if they still work. So being an adult and having to deal with shit like that is annoying.
For sure.
Uh, and then yeah, we almost had Halloween with our friends last weekend.
We did almost.
Um, and it was canceled last minute, which actually works out because Barry wasn't going to be able to come. So, a redo is going to be good, and I'm excited. Um, yeah, and I was also pleased that I hadn't put like a lot of work into the costume because I was just going to reuse a Dragon Con costume, and that worked out great for me. So,
Same.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had I just had my pile on the kitchen
yeah.
table. So that's what I'll do is I'll like create the pile for the next day and be like, don't, this
hmm
is the stuff not to forget. And so then when it got canceled, I just put it all back in the bin and put it back
Yep.
downstairs.
Well, and we were also like with the theme of the 90s, we were trying to figure out what Barry should be. And he was like, oh, I could go as Dr. Alan Grant again. And I was like, but you did just do that. We have a middlingly awesome replacement, but I'm not going to tell you because I kind of want to be a surprise.
Nice. I do feel like my biggest thing with Halloweens of late has been I
Mm.
just don't want to spend money. Like if I can piece
Yeah.
something together with things I have, great. I don't need to like buy more costumes.
Yeah, I mean, like the Oops All Allens party, I put like a lot more effort than I was intending to into it. It didn't end up being like super expensive because they were like simple things, but the effort, like the
Yeah.
time investment was heavy.
Mm.
But yeah, I think oh, it's just been raining forever, which is great because it was so dry. But now just everything's really soggy, and November is just a really like month. It's just super stick season, and there is snow on the mountains, so that actually is pretty to look at, but it's gloomy and
Yeah.
it's dark so friggin' early.
Yeah, that daylight savings, we can't save it anymore.
No, it can't be saved.
Yeah, we've been dealing with that. Actually, it's funny because we're getting that cold burst
Yep.
next week, and my brother and I are headed to Florida
Oh
to go
yeah.
see our parents. We hopefully, knock on wood, leave on Monday, but if the government shutdown
Oh,
continues,
which
they
it likely
announced,
will.
yeah, they announced today that, or yesterday, that starting
Wow.
today, they were going to start canceling 10% of flights, domestic
Yep.
flights in the US. So
Yep.
shout out us for fucking being great
Yeah.
again. I'm so glad this
Yeah.
is what greatness was. We did
Well,
it,
my favorite statistic is that this is the longest government shutdown in history, and the only other longest one was also under Trump.
yeah, we are doing it. So we'll see. I'll be out some money if I don't know how like if the flight gets canceled, sure, but I don't think I'll like get my rental car back or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Just a whole bunch of shit show, but I'm not gonna worry about it because at the end of like if it was something like important, it is important to go see my parents, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but
But if
it's
it
like
was something like emergency
they're
or
both
something,
doing okay, like
yeah,
health-wise.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a different case. So I'm gonna be more anxious about whether or not we can get home.
Sure. Sure. That's more
Hon-
important.
Honestly, when we booked the flight like 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, I was like, oh, it'll be over by then. Like shutdowns, they always figure it out. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, but just getting ready for that, getting prepared with my brother to go down there, and they live in a 55 and older community, and it's just old fuddy-duddyville down there, and it's just a
Yep.
different way of life
Oh, I bet.
in Florida. So yeah, so we've got that next week. And then the only other thing I had was the burger competition that we did
Oh,
after we recorded
yeah.
last episode. Uh, you know, no matter what happens, we always have an argument about the judging.
Mm.
So we actually
Who
had
are you all judging each other's?
no, we always have judges that aren't participating, and it's always our
Okay.
friend Sean Morrison. And then it sometimes it's just him. We've had it be him and Joey before. It's kind of like whoever we can find. This time, Jay didn't actually compete, and we were doing it at Alden's house. So we had 4.5 judges for only 4 contestants because we had Sean, Joey, Jay, Emily, and their baby Anders, who Anders
Oh,
didn't really eat
I was like, the
anything.
baby can't really participate,
No,
right?
but if he cried while they were dealing with your burger, it was points off. Which,
Oh, sure.
uh, but I was frustrated with the grading system they came up with because the whole point was a burger and a drink, and to like
Hmm.
make it mean something. And I was the
Yeah.
only one who made a drink. Like, granted, it was just I made like a chocolate frap.
Sorry. The whole contest was a pairing, and you were the only one that paired something.
So Sully bought like a hard cider to go with his. Alden bought Dr. Pepper, and Roy made root beer floats, which is, I guess, kind of making something, but he put ice
I'll,
cream in something.
yeah, so not super complicated, but I will give him more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't end up counting that towards your grade. So I
That's
was like,
silly.
that could have really made up points there. So
Yeah.
long story long, I came in second. Sully ended up winning. He beat me by like 2 points on a scale of 25. I think he got 17 and a half to my 15 and a half or something like that.
Okay.
But afterwards, Joey, because he made his homemade bun, uh, he made his own bacon jam, and
Wait, you
he
did
like
too, right?
yeah, I did too. It was really funny because we didn't talk about it beforehand, and then I met up with him and we went over together and we were talking about a burger. So like, okay.
Oh
Uh,
no, were they basically like a similar thing
well,
overall?
he did like a soft cooked apple, which he put under his as well, like thin sliced, which really was
Ooh.
I think that was what won it for him.
Yeah.
Um, so I made bacon jam and I did a quick pickle on some jalapenos, and
Mm.
I got knocked for not creating my own peanut butter sauce because I did like a peanut butter and jelly burger, and I was like, I made a drink though. Like,
Yeah.
so I was a little hot under the collar after the judging, but that is, how it works.
Yeah.
But they announced us in reverse order, and Roy came in last. And as soon as they said that, we're like, "Yep, okay, all right, we believe you," because that was our biggest thing last time is that Roy won, and he
Oh,
was not allowed to.
oh no. What was Roy's burger?
He did a stuffed cream cheese jalapeno burger.
Well, it sounds pretty
So it
good.
was like it was fine. It just wasn't anything crazy special. And Alden, who was the one who like really pushed for this, made his own version of a baconator. So like it was just smash burger, cheeseburger with bacon. He did make a bacon aioli where instead of
Oh.
like I think instead of fat or whatever for the mayonnaise, he used bacon grease. So that
Oh,
was like,
super bacon.
God, you want to talk about cholesterol.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so anyway, it was fun to experience with my friends, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
And
on
then
that
have you
note,
done that consistently, like every year?
we used to. This was our first time in like 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But we used to really be every year with it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's like everything. You get older and you miss it one year, and then you miss it the next year, and you're like, hey, remember that thing we used to do? And nobody
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, it can be tough to like come back to the pattern.
Yeah. So on that note, this is your every episode reminder to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Get over there, folks, at Adult Book Club 21. It's all one word. Adult Book Club and the number 21, not for the age you need to be, but for the year we started this. So many mistakes made early on that we're still paying for, but it's too late to change, folks, and we're just not those people. So on that note, we get back to the book, which once again was Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. And Shorefall is the second novel. Wait, that can't be right. Yep, the second novel in the Founders trilogy and was originally published in 2020. That's right, folks. About 10 pages into this book, I realized it was the second book in the trilogy that I had bought. All the nice words on the back of my book were for the first book in the series,
Oh,
which you don't look. I hate when they do that, but it does say right on
that's
the
not
top,
fair.
praise for Foundry Side.
Yeah.
I just think it's for the book I'm picking up. How am I supposed to know that? Obviously I didn't read the jacket, which is the other issue is I've really kind of 180'd where instead of like reading the jacket and thinking about the book, I read the praise for it. And
Yeah.
again, if it's like authors we
Who it
know that we
is. Yeah.
like or respect, I'm like, okay, and that's what happened here. So
Yeah.
you read the jacket and Taja will, it's like, oh, right after the events of this, and it's like, ah, so yeah. Yeah, 106 episodes in, we all make mistakes, and this isn't my first, won't be my last. So back to this. The first book in the trilogy is titled Foundry Side, which was released in 2018, and the series finished with the release of Lock Lands in 2022. Aside from this trilogy, Bennett has written 9 other novels, including his award-winning series, The Divine Cities Trilogy. His most recent novel was A Drop of Corruption, which is a fantasy murder mystery and the second book in the Shadow of the Leviathan series. So quite a bit of work. This is another one. He is only 41 years old.
Wow.
So you look at that. That's the problem with getting older. You're suddenly looking at these people as your peers and like, wow, you've done a lot.
And meanwhile,
Yeah, exactly. We have a podcast.
yep.
So on that, Tasha, if you want to read us the jacket, we'll get started.
A few years ago, Sansia Grotto would have happily watched Tavan burn. Now she's fighting to transform her city into something new, something better. Together with allies Orso, Gregor, and Berenice, she's about to strike a deadly blow against Tavan's cruel robber baron rulers. But their plans will count for nothing if Sansia can't stop what's coming, because an ancient enemy is about to be reborn, and if he returns, Tavan will only be the first place to feel his wrath. Centuries ago, this legendary adversary used the magic of scribing, the art of imbuing objects with sentience, to convince reality that he was something more than human. Invested with godlike powers, he meted out mad justice and raised empires single-handedly, and even, it seems, defeated death itself. To have a chance at beating him, Sansia will have to call upon her god, a god of her own, and unlock the door to a scribing technology that could change what it means to be human. And no matter who wins, nothing will ever be the same.
So as you can
I
see,
also didn't read the back before I started reading it, though.
very clearly, second book in our story. And before we get into this one, I do kind of want to touch on that since it's a unique, hopefully one-off situation for this podcast. That we're jumping in the middle, but I want to know once it became very clear very early on that we were not reading the first book of this trilogy, what did you think of jumping into this story in the middle? Like, how did it how did it affect your reading compared to normal?
I mean, generally it felt okay. I mean, felt fine. I think he did a good job um with the world building. It wasn't like I felt totally adrift in the second book. I think where it detracted for me was in the characters specifically, like their sort of development and their relationships with each other were already established basically in the first book, of course. So we're here with the second book feeling like maybe we should know things that we don't. Um, and it kept me from being invested in them. Um, and I think that was kind of to a detriment because they seemed like they could be really cool, full characters. And I'm sure that for people that read the first book, this one maybe like built on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe not, maybe just for some. But yeah, that I think was the biggest sort of downside to me was from a character standpoint.
Yeah, my biggest fear once I figured this out was I wasn't going to understand the magic system because that
Yeah.
was what Sanderson and Timur Pierce talked about on the back of the book, which is the reason I picked it up. And I was like, oh shit, he went through all the hundreds of pages of explaining that in the first book. It doesn't explain it here. I'm really going
Right.
to be lost. So I thought he did really well, kind of
Mhm.
giving you the refresher, giving you the recap on that. But you're exactly right. And I was trying to think of what series could you jump into in the middle of, or how to have this experience without how to explain this experience without having gone through it, because you just don't know how much you miss. And we talk about it in other books that we read where we do read the first book and we talk about, oh, you can tell it's a first book. We're laying so much foundation, so much
Mhm.
foundation. And so it was interesting to just not have that. And I think the deeper I went into the story, the more I felt that, where I because I didn't have that connection like you were talking about, I didn't care as much about what happened to these characters. As it kind of went on, I found my mind wandering more as I was
Mm.
reading. Like you said, I think we kind of in this one we'll get into it probably in spoilers, but I think we learned some of the secrets of Gregor that people were probably wondering from the first book.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is with Orso, who seems like the father figure in this group. We don't really get any of that, any of his part, other than him kind of being the boss man. I felt like there wasn't much that we actually built on there.
Yeah.
And then San and Bernice, who are a couple, we get that kind of we get moments through them so you can understand that they're a couple and the love
Right.
that they have.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sure there's like a great meet cute or something. It's
Yeah.
something that actually gets you more involved. So yeah, well, as you said, he did a great job recapping the world, recapping the magic system. I'm sure as the author, you don't feel the need to recap all of the character building that you did in the first one. So that was definitely the weak point of jumping into the middle.
I agree, and I feel like after I finished, I went and read some reviews on Goodreads, and people had said like the most repeated sort of comment was that it was a little bit I don't think dry is exactly the right word, but like the first book was incredibly apparently like high energy and like very a lot of action was happening. And I think that this happens with a lot of trilogies where the middle book is kind of like the coasting one where
Yeah.
like not a lot of really intense shit is happening. And that, like you said, I found my mind kind of wandering a little bit and it was a little tougher to stay focused in the story. And I think that that's part of just that middle point A to point C
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, you're the stepping stone. You just got to
Yeah.
get through it kind of thing, which is what
Yeah.
makes Empire Strikes Back such an incredible movie.
Right.
So, on that note, even though we did, or I did fuck up here, we're going to treat this as much as we can like a typical book. So, let's get back to our usual programming. And we start with our main character, which is Sansia. I was wondering what you thought of her as we got to know her.
I mean, she was okay. It kind of comes back to like us not really getting a chance to learn much about the characters. It sounded like um she maybe came from a really hard situation, and I do appreciate the found family scenario, but to the point about Sansa and Berenice, like meet cute. We don't get any of how they come together and what their we get a little bit of their relationships, obviously, even between like Sansa and Gregor and Orso and everything. But like, I don't know. I don't feel like I had much of an attachment to her. Um, she her ability was super neat, how she could communicate with the sentient scrivings, because that sounded like an incredibly rare situation. Obviously, it was like a intentional, like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but that was kind of overshadowed sometimes by her annoying naivete with things. Like she certainly was like nicely flawed. You don't want to have a character that's just going to be great at everything. And I also appreciate a character that's kind of your lead POV, but she also isn't able to do everything on her own. Like she definitely pulls from those around her, and from an ensemble standpoint, I appreciate that so much more too.
I liked, and I thought the book did well setting this up. Again, it's like 10 pages in, I text you, fuck. This is the second book. Gonna keep going. And honestly, I'd seen on Goodreads that you were reading it. So it's like, okay, we're just gonna go with it. And it's too
Yep.
late to pull out then anyway.
So I don't remember when exactly I first realized it, but I had a text to you and then I delete. I was like, "Did you know that this was a second book?" And then I was like, "Delete, delete, delete, delete." Like, of course he didn't know.
Yeah, no, it was my plan all along. Real
Right.
surprise book.
Yeah.
So once that happened, I will say I feel like everything was just like skin deep with our characters and all that kind of as we've been saying.
Yeah.
But with Sansia, I enjoyed her the most, and obviously she's our main POV. Like we get a little bit of Berenice later on, and some of Gregor and stuff like that, but we really live in Sansia for like 95
Yeah.
plus percent of this book. So it's really about her. But the heist setup
Mm,
to start the book off, I thought was very exciting and actually made
totally.
it much easier for me to get into this, where I was like,
Totally.
okay, action right off the bat,
Yeah.
cool. And I guess that is kind of jumping into the middle because he expects you to already know all these things about her.
Right.
But learning quickly about her thieving background and her unique ability, I appreciated that while they have this plan, a major part of the plan is Sand does Sand stuff.
Yeah.
Like she'll figure it out. And she does with her special, unique power to communicate to the scribing. So I, taking it for what it was and knowing that I wasn't going to get super deep into this, I really enjoyed how unique she felt and can understand
Yeah.
how she was like a very strong lead character for us. So that helped. I will say, as if we had more of that excitement of that heist level stuff, and like there's battles and big things and whatever, but it seems to get like overly complicated.
I
Where that
agree.
first heist wasn't, like she was dealing with the scribings and talking to different ones and whatever and showing off her power. If we kind of stayed in that lightness, I feel
Yeah.
like it would have been a much better book for me, but
Yeah.
maybe not for somebody who had read book one.
Sure.
So moving on, we can touch on our other three Foundry Siders, which is Berenice, Orso, and Gregor. I was wondering what you thought of these companions with what we did learn about them.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think initially Gregor was sort of a favorite. I just liked his attitude and the backstory that we just like the limited backstory we got. And then when we learned more about him, I thought that was really interesting. And somebody who's really trying to like not make a name for himself, but change the perception of,
Who he
who he
is.
who he is.
Almost get away from his name.
Right, exactly. So I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. He just seemed like a good, like big teddy bear kind of guy.
He he
Go ahead.
reminded me, and he wasn't even there to tell this story. It was actually Karen Gillian and Alex Kingston telling the story about Arthur Darvill, from Doctor Who, where they were doing a publicity thing in the US, like a tour, and they were just getting smashed like every night, but Arthur wasn't. And so like every morning he would pick up the pieces of their hangovers and everything and like have to like make sure they got to places on time. And finally he broke. And Karen tells the story. It's hilarious. And she's like, he just started screaming, like, why do I always have to be the dad? And that's kind of what I see Gregor as in this. Like, he doesn't break that way, but because he's the security guy, he's the one that's always
He's like
thinking of
thinking
like the
about,
10 other
yeah,
things that could go wrong
yeah,
instead of just Sand doing Sand stuff and Orso whatever and Bernice being in her own head. Gregor's the one that's kind of like watching over this group, and it is his job inside of the group, but also I think that's like he's got a very particular set of skills kind of thing.
yeah,
So I enjoyed peeling back that cover. I wish it was a little bit more uh spoilers before spoilers, like nicer once we pulled that cover off, especially for
yeah.
Gregor. He deserved a better landing just in
He
what
really
we.
did. Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I felt like a particular connection to him. So, yeah.
And to
The
be
and
fair, I think we again going back to like how we learned some of his secrets. I think
mm,
we learned the most about Gregor in this book.
yeah,
So it would kind of make sense that we were more drawn to him because
sure.
it kind of became his story
Right.
in its own way.
Right. Yeah, and then like Orso very much feels, I know you just said Gregor kind of has the dad thing going, but I think Orso's role is very also fatherly, just in
Yeah,
terms of like he seems like the entity that everyone kind of rallied around and the Foundry side situation that they've started and everything, like their organization
yeah,
is because of him. Um, and I do feel as though the second book didn't really do him justice in terms of really, maybe the first book like had a lot more backstory, I don't know. But it felt like he was somebody that inspired loyalty, and I appreciate that. And how everybody cared about each other was just really sweet.
yeah. He definitely felt like the mentor of the group. Where
Yeah,
we learned that him and Berenice had worked together at the Dandelion
yeah,
compound back in the day. Obviously, that's where he probably had met Gregor, and then who knows how Sansa fell into this with her thieving. I'm sure at some point. But yeah, the loyalty and just how much they cared, especially about Orso, like looking after him like the old man kind of situation. You know, he
yeah,
talks about how proud he is of them all separately and the people they become. Like definitely that he seemed to have that 10 to 20 year age gap on them
yeah.
where he was like the prior generation. So that does make sense. But yeah, he was there for all of it,
Mhm.
but it
Yeah,
didn't seem like we dug in a bunch. But hearing about him and Berenice's past, that probably I assume was a big part. Like, and the fact that it was called Foundry Siders or Foundry Side, the first book, you just assume that that's them breaking away
they're
from that
clear. Yeah,
campo
yeah,
and starting their own magical
right,
compound, whatever.
right.
As far as Berenice is concerned, I did like the relationship with Stan. I liked how he handled it. It felt very loving,
It did.
even
And
before
like
the.
realistic, like not
Yeah,
like a forced kind of
yeah,
icky.
and even before the connection was made between them, the magical one, I felt like they had really good communication and really good
Mm.
give and take. And for me, do you remember the show The Nevers? It was an
Yeah,
HBO show. Yeah,
yeah,
that
Claudia Black's in it.
Claudia Black in the
Of
last
course I know
episode.
it.
So remember the two women in that who were kind of going off on their own to, I forget what exactly they were. They were like doing inventions and stuff.
Yeah,
But you had like the black-haired woman who was like more skilled in like martial arts and things like she was kind of
yeah,
like the badass. And then you had the other woman who was, I think, more like of an Irish or something Gaelic dialect, who was more the tinkerer, who was like all of her inventions. That's how I pictured these two. Like San is the dark-haired woman that gets her hands dirty, and Berenice is the blonde-haired woman who's like the inventor and kind of like the a beautiful
the
mind.
brains of the operation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That also makes me think of another Doctor Who episode. There's like the couple that's like a lizard woman and the she's also dark-haired, like a maid or something. I'm doing a poor job of this. Anybody who's listening and knows more can correct me, but it's a similar kind of situation. Like one is like the fighter and the other's like the stealthy, like sneaky one.
But that's that. I don't know that episode. You're doing a great job explaining it, referencing it. But that's what I took away from Berenice is like she's the prodigal mind, where
Yeah.
obviously Orso saw something in her, and knew that like where Sans' unique gift was bestowed upon her by
Right.
Valyria, it sounds like
Berenice is like is her own.
prodigy. So
Yeah.
I really appreciated how well they stood up on their own and how well they worked
Definitely.
together.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I think similarly to Orso, Berenice was a character in this book that we didn't really like get to sit with too much. And I feel like you learn a bit about her and that you know that she's sort of like a mind palace kind of person who houses all this information, and that's super impressive. And obviously is quite skilled. But yeah, I think overall he did a really good job. Um, what I'm assuming is carrying through into this book the same kind of, he's built these characters and they seem very true to whatever it is that he's built.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It didn't seem like anybody was taking a hard left turn.
Right, right.
Maybe at the end, but we'll
Maybe,
get to that
yeah.
later. So moving away from the characters, we have the magic of this world, which is what drew me to it. So how did you think Bennett handled magic and the idea of scribing being used to rewrite reality, give sentience to things, convince it to warp around you, whatever? What did you think of what did you think of the magic system in this world?
So as like a logical argumentation girly, it was super interesting that concept of the magic coming from basically logical arguments. Like the fact that sentience is involved, of course it has to be, otherwise the logical arguments don't mean anything. Um, but I do feel as though it's a very, how do I phrase this? Like it, the pros and cons are pretty intense. Like from a storytelling standpoint, it seems as though it could get incredibly um too big too fast in terms of there's all these possibilities. Like if you can just rewrite reality, not willy-nilly, like obviously you have to follow through with something that is actually logical or it doesn't really work, but it also, so the door is open just super wide. So then you can swoop in and make anything happen from a narrative standpoint. Like that can be kind of cool to read and also kind of annoying to read.
Yeah, he did talk about how like the big things would require sacrifice.
Right.
Like doesn't like for a lexicon to be powered, usually it costs an actual person's life, and the lexicon
Mhm.
is like the battery that you need that machine nearby to make the other magic work for
It gave
whatever.
me like Blood Over Brighthaven during the sacrificey bits or
Yeah,
the conversations about that. Yeah.
100%. So I do see where you're going with that, where like sometimes if the door is that wide open, it can create complications and sometimes lazy writing. And I'm not saying that's what happened
Yeah, that
here. But like while I found it interesting, I also think that he lost it a few times. Like the
mm-hmm.
overall idea of you can make walls higher and make them stand taller because they're
Right.
told to, and like you
Or
can,
like a door unlock or whatever.
yeah, the
Yeah.
door won't excuse me, the door won't unlock or like the gate won't open for you unless it has three seals present in blood of somebody. And it's like,
And the
okay,
time and
but then
the
the way Sans power works, where she can communicate with them, she's like, okay, but what about like opening in or whatever instead of
yeah,
out? She like deals with the logic where it's the
yeah.
things that aren't covered, or how do you if you didn't explain time properly to this
Mm.
construct, oh, actually, a second is really a day long. So that last person who opened the lock and it's only supposed to stay open for
Still
5 minutes,
here.
that actually did just happen. Oh, okay. So I enjoyed that side of her power, but where it kind of reminded me of like D&D campaigns I've been
Mm.
involved in and I've run, where sometimes you just lose something. You forget that that's a rule here or that's how it
Yeah.
works or something like that. There was a
It's
few
so
different times
complicated.
there was a few different times I was like, wait, but if that's happening, shouldn't this also happen? Or shouldn't that have taken away the logic of this
Right,
situation? Or
right. They
shouldn't that
cancel each other
affected,
out.
yeah, that door or something? Where
Yeah.
I don't think you want your readers going down that hole. But so that just makes it harder because you want to
Yeah.
keep them on path. But if you leave those open kind of it's not exactly a plot hole, but it kind of felt like it was. Or
Yeah,
you're sitting there and you're like, fuck, I don't want this to happen right now. Maybe nobody will notice if it doesn't. It's like, but wait, that happened 50 pages ago.
right,
Why is it suddenly not happening now? I felt
right.
like there's a couple of those where it's not like, I don't know, it's not like flubbed, but it felt like it was kind of,
It
I
was
don't know. It like
like
pulls me out because I'm like questioning.
it's kind of like fumbling a football where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know if this is gonna happen. Sports.
Sports, we did it. But overall, like I enjoyed the idea. I like that it was different. I like it reminded me,
Hmm.
I forget where we were, but I think it was like a school vacation where you could go, and I think it was to show off like engraving, but they would like write your name on a piece of rice or something like that.
Oh
And it
wow.
was like, oh, that's like just showing off how tiny their tools are and stuff. And like that's
Yeah.
kind of just what I pictured as they were talking about how many different lines of engraving you would have to put on to convince these things and how small you would make it.
And when they had to like swallow the thing, I was like, hold up, have I been misinterpreting all of this whole time? Because what now?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I've got this ingot of
Yeah.
iron that I need to swallow. Okay. Yeah, it's like, no,
Yeah,
it's
I like
smaller,
have trouble swallowing like Tylenol. Like,
right? Smaller than a pill. You'll be fine.
yeah.
And yeah, just the intricacies that went into that. And then also Berenice being that prodigy and being able to just work through those lines of it's
Yeah.
basically like code because you have to write
Hmm.
in all those different, you have to define time, you have to define gravity, space, whatever, depending on what you want to do. Like you have to try to cover as many bases as you can. So yeah, it gets very complicated as you're trying to do that. And it's not like in the with the boat, right? Where they shut down all the scribings in the area and the boat forgets that it's a boat. It's like,
Whoops.
okay.
Yeah. I do appreciate the correlation to like coding because that definitely it feels and I think that the quote from Tamara Pierce was about that, right? Like the technology and magic and I think that or one of the quotes I thought you read. I think that's super cool, and I definitely appreciate the originality of that. Like the Blood Over Brighthaven was also kind of similarly tech-ish,
Yeah,
but this obviously was less problematic, um, generally speaking.
at times.
But it also had a little bit more of a, maybe not more, but so often in magic things, magic itself is inaccessible for a variety of reasons.
Mm.
And this is one of those things where it feels like you could go to school and learn how to do the things. Obviously, people like Berenice, where they're just inherently great at it, is a different level. Um, but then, or like Sansia, where she has sort of a modification that allows her to do things. And I appreciate that it's not like only people who are Fae can do it or something like that.
Well, and it became like a currency, which was the whole point of what the Foundry Siders were trying to do in the
Mm.
beginning, where it's hid, like they have the powerful families that have run their generations they've run and they have accrued this technology and this information where
And
they know the lines of code you need and all that, and they hold on to it because that's
they
where the money
hoard their
is.
wealth.
And so the Foundry Siders, their whole point with the heist to begin with, and what they're trying to create, I assume what happens in the first book, is to break out the people, the scribers, the people that write the magic, to break them out of these compounds and bring them to the people and try to get that magic to more people, which
Democratic socialism, buddy.
makes sense. It is interesting, but we quickly, in like, I don't know, 80 pages later, we move away from that idea completely as this book
There's
takes
bigger fish to fry.
an incredible turn. Yeah. So, yeah, overall, I liked it. I think there was some fumbles with the ball,
Yeah.
as you said, getting into it. It was nice that it was different.
Yeah.
But I do like you're comparing it to Blood Over Brighthaven with the idea of the technology and magic mixing. And it was Tamara Pierce, so great memory on you for a quote
I
not on
don't
your book.
forget her.
Never forget. So, on that note, we are going to get to your Get to Know Your Podcaster question. And it is Sansia and Berenice both swallow a scribed piece of metal in order to create a connection between themselves, which we see grow as the book continues. And this was basically they feel each other's memories, they know each other's thoughts, they can communicate, they can even like see through each other's eyes at different times. depending on how deep they want to go into this well. So I'm not giving you the option to say whether or not you want to do it. I'm saying you have to do it. You have to open yourself up to somebody this way. So, if you have, oh, not if. So, who would you do this with? Who would you swallow the pill with and make that connection, and why?
Okay. So this is probably going to be like an obvious choice. Well, I have, okay. So my first answer was Barry, and I like really had a lot of thought go into this because initially I was like, I don't have a lot of the same like mental health issues that he does. So is this like going to be a dangerous endeavor? Also, like fully admitting that I would never choose to do this with
Yeah.
anyone ever. Just get that out of the way. But I think that Barry would be the choice only because, and he and I were talking about this yesterday, because I was like, hey, listen, in this book, this happens. And this question that Russell had, I'm answering you because he often says how he wishes that his brain worked like mine does.
Yeah.
And I think it could be a really helpful tool to have the ability, I mean, to see through his perspective about things and kind of learn from that, but then also have him have a chance to do the opposite. So I was hoping it would work in both ways. And he was like, my bad stuff is going to consume your good stuff.
There's
So
that optimism.
yeah, exactly. But I was thinking of it in terms of like how it could benefit both parties,
Yeah.
basically. Like that's what something that we see, I think, with Sensi and Berenice in general is kind of like um the melding of their sensibilities. And I think that Barry and I are opposite enough that that could maybe also work. Or maybe mine will be consumed by all of his craziness. I don't know. But then my other answer was Bryce. Which is absurd. And again, I would never choose to do this. But like, how cool would it be? I don't know that you could do cross species. It probably wouldn't work. I mean, she is sentient, but not in like the a humanity kind of way. It's like how I want to get her the buttons that speak.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It's just a much further, deeper step into that realm. So, yeah.
I did not expect any less, let's be honest.
I know. I know. I'm very predictable.
I thought about Amanda for mine, and I honestly just I don't think I'd want to do that. I don't like we're already so involved in each other's lives. Like I feel like it's nice to have a little bit of like separation there where it's like I
And
have
that's why I'm saying I would never
oh
actually do
obviously,
this.
obviously. So I was going through the list, right? And I was trying to think of like who kind of what you said, like pros and cons or like what could be a benefit for it. Who do I think would handle and not judge me basically for my fucking insane brain and like the things that pop in at 4 a.m. So I went with Shavar
Oh,
because I think he's got that perfect temperament where he's not going to be like something crazy. You know, he's gonna text me and be like, "Hey, baby, you okay?" Or like mental talk me that way
yeah.
and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Why is it
Yep.
running? Why you got trains running through your
This
brain?"
this is why I think it would work with Barry and I, because we have the like,
Yeah.
levels.
So I think that would be one benefit, and then also it would be interesting to experience like this is maybe a little weird, but I think it would be interesting to experience like his feelings for his family and get
Oh
that kind of like
yeah.
how much he cares about his kids and get that kind of
Oh,
side of things that
that's
isn't
sweet.
part of my life. So I think
Right.
that would be interesting and a different way to experience it through somebody else's eyes. So
That's a super
uh,
good point.
I thought that would be really, really interesting to go through.
Yeah,
So, yeah, as you said, I don't really think there's a good answer here. I think it's insane no matter what.
absolutely
And like,
bonkers.
even when they do it by swallowing the pill, it sounds like it's a temporary thing. I
Yeah,
assume eventually they're going to pass the pill.
that is what
Uh,
I also assumed.
but also in the story, and we'll get into it in spoilers, they really seem to like it, which, yeah, I guess like in the heat of the moment, it's very helpful. But
Oh,
like,
for
what
sure.
about on a Wednesday? at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Like, and this is why I just think I have a problem with like the concept in general is like what you were saying before. I don't like I don't want anyone else up in here.
Yeah,
Like it's
100.
fine. We don't need to yeah. It's we're at capacity.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're doing good. So yeah, so let us know in the comments who you'd like to twin with. Let us know what we missed. Yell at us if you think we should have chose you. Sorry, and stuff. So on that note, we're going to move into spoilers. To do that, we have your song. It goes like this. This is the pot that we're going into spoilers. If you don't know the book, get out or stay. I mean, it's the second fucking book in the trilogy, so what are you really going to learn here? Because this is the pot that we're going into spoilers. It's time to learn what melding all your minds with everybody you know and even people you don't. And then what's the worst that could happen? Oh, shit goes crazy. And what that's all about in spoilers. Yeah, so spoilers. We didn't even talk about this guy, but as Crusaders Magnus, who's like the super really bad guy, supposedly, enacts his plans on Trevane, the Foundry Siders are stuck putting their faith in Valeria, a godlike construct who has the power to defy Crusaders, but is keeping secrets from them. As the battle for the city intensifies, Crusaders foils their original plan and takes Sansia, Orso, Gregor, and Valeria hostage. He plans to reform Valeria into her original parameters and have her take away humans' free will in order to stop them from being violent with each other. Berenice managed to escape and thanks to the new twinning ability is able to communicate telepathically with Sansia while she is captured. The two come up with a new plan to stop Crusaders from destroying the city. Berenice distracts him by temporarily disabling some of the lexicons he controls. When he is out of the room, she goes to free Sansia and Orso, but is confronted by Gregor, who is still under Crusaders' control. Gregor's mother, Ophelia, enters the room, and while she is killed by him, she manages to stab him with a scribed dagger that connects him to Sansia and Berenice, releasing him from the hold Crusaders had on him. The group gets to work setting a trap for Crusaders' return and are successful in thwarting his plans. However, Valeria uses this moment to slip inside all the lexicons of the city and take control of everything. She is going to use her power to kill most of mankind around the world and return them to a savage state, as it is the only way she believes man will be free from wanting to control each other. Gregor sees an opening to stop her, and using the scribed pill Valeria made earlier to try and control Sansia, he twins himself with the godlike being. This gives the other Foundry Siders a chance to escape, but the new being is no longer Gregor or Valeria and calls itself Trevane, taking over every scribed tool and weapon in the city. It traps the populace and begins attacking Crusaders to keep him occupied. The Foundry-Siders eventually escape to a boat, but before it can leave the harbor, it sees other ships further out being destroyed by the city's defenses. Trevane wishes to push its influence around the world and won't let anyone escape who could warn others of what's happening. Orso makes the decision to sacrifice himself to get his friends to freedom, and using the Imperiat, a tool meant to stop scribing in a certain radius, he heads back to the city and stops the artillery from leaving the bay. He then heads into the Dandolo compound and triggers a massive failure in the main lexicon, which causes an explosion that levels half the city. His sacrifice works to let groups escape, including Sansia and Berenice, but Crusaders also is able to get away, and the being that is Trevane is not completely killed. Our story ends with Clef telling Sansia that this is far from over and the war is just beginning. There's like so much in there that without reading the book you would totally understand. So glad you guys all stuck around. I will also say this felt like a weird thing to write questions for. I actually struggled with it because I was like, stuff happened, sure. But again, feeling like it was just kind of muddled and like, oh, this, yeah, sure, that happened and that happened and that. It didn't, there was a flow, but there wasn't really. It was like, oh, we have a plan, it got stopped. Oh, we got a plan, it got stopped. Oh, we got a plan, it got stopped. Like,
It was very repetition, like a lot
yeah,
of repetition and very I feel like it was meant to feel like high stakes, and I often didn't feel like it was actually high stakes.
yes. So, and we kind of get into this with the first question. So, as we see how easy it is for Crusaders to destroy life and magic, did you find the Foundry Siders' rebellion against him believable?
I mean, not really. Like, I think that a lot of the things they were doing were kind of repetitive and required sort of not heavy explanation, but there was a lot more scientific aspect. Like they had to do this to do with the lexicon and the Imperiad and all like blah, 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 just like not buzzwords, but just tech stuff that didn't really seem like not that it didn't matter, but it felt plateaued.
Yeah.
Like there were times like when Sansia was in the mountain originally with Crescides and kind of like takes Crescides to this room and tries to like collapse the mountain in on him. Like that felt intense. And then it was like, oh, okay, he got out. And then
Yeah.
that whole chase scene where he's like floating behind them, I was having a hard time it felt like he was trying to make it really intense, and I wasn't vibing with it. It wasn't
Yeah.
feeling like I don't know. It was like a B movie or something.
I think the whole problem I had with it was he had like bad guy, like stereotypical bad guy flaws, where he just kept trying to get Sansa to see his side and bring her over to
Like
his side.
enough monologuing, my dude.
Yeah, where all he had to do was show her his face and she would go crazy and kill herself because that's what everybody else was doing literally hundreds of times.
And the fact that he wasn't just killing her definitely took away from the like, okay, you're not really in danger, but also definitely made me question if he was actually the bad guy. Like, clearly everyone's talking about him, like, we can't let him come back, blah, blah. And then he comes back and it's kind of like not as dramatic as I was expecting, or they don't really seem as fearful as they should.
Yeah, I thought he did. I thought the author did well kind of pinning the reader with the group between Crescides and
Valerian.
Valeria and wondering like who's not telling you what and like keeping the
Yeah,
secrets. Obviously, Valeria having secrets, I thought he did a good job portraying that. So it
for
was
sure.
constantly there. But yeah, it did make you question if Crescides was really our bad guy
Yeah,
and should we be trying to stop him?
right.
But again, also to your point, like when they bring the mountain down on him, he's trying to get the mountain because that has enough lexicons to power what he needs to do. And it's all just about pivoting because then he's like, okay, well, I can actually turn the city into like this lexicon circle that I need. And meanwhile, the Foundry Siders are like, we can just store enough power in our lexicon to try to like make a buffing zone where you can't get in. And like it just felt like we kept doing the same thing different ways. We kept having the same goal. We just
Hmm.
switched the technology that we needed or the place we needed in order to fulfill it. And where Crescides, on one hand, it was funny. I was just watching a reel about this where it talks about like the fatal flaw in movies is like in the beginning, your hero will be like, I don't want to risk one life. Like he runs
Hmm.
into the middle of the street to save one person from getting hit by a car. And then towards the end of the movie, when the big thing is happening, all of a sudden, like buildings are falling down and people are dying
You're
everywhere
like,
because of their
definitely people are
actions
dying.
and they like no longer care. That's kind of how this felt, where Crescides was like doing his best to save Sansa, and granted, she has this unique power. She also had Clef, which he was trying to find because he has a connection to. But he's doing all that, and then in the next chapter, he's like, "Well, fuck this. The Morosini compound. I'm going to take that," and he just goes and kills 200 people. Like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
very all over the place.
and like in the beginning when he first gets like resurrected or whatever on that boat and all those people are dead and sacrificed or whatever. I mean, I guess it was kind of a result of his like marred situation. But like when he was talking to Gregor's mom, Ophelia was kind of like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that happened," like blah blah blah. But then it's like, "You're not actually sorry."
Well,
Like,
the hundred that had to die to
we're the
warp reality
slaves.
to bring him
That's right.
back was one thing. It was the dozen or so scrivers who then saw his appearance and went crazy. That was
Right, but rich people don't think that slaves are real people.
yeah, no, those were just a necessary
Right.
tool, of
Right.
course, to bring him back.
Right.
Yeah, so because of that, I just kept being like, okay, we're gonna win.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like
There wasn't there was no skin in the game.
yeah, and us being in the middle of this and not really having a connection
Yeah.
with the characters made us feel even less about it. So yeah, it's definitely felt like one of those lanterns they were describing that just got unmoored and kept floating up in the sky as this book went on. I was like, okay, fine, goodbye. I'll
Yeah.
keep watching from up here.
Mm-hmm.
So we discussed it with the Get to Know Your Podcaster question, digging a little deeper into the twinning magic that the Foundry Siders used to eventually connect all four of them. I was wondering what stood out to you about that, both good or bad, as far as they're concerned, not having it in our heads.
Right, right, right. I think the good part was um the sort of super fast problem solving. It kind of felt like, when you get like a really satisfying montage, like a training montage or something like that, or even like a heist prep montage.
Yeah.
It felt like that where everybody had a little bit of a different skill or viewpoint that they were bringing to the table, and how they kind of worked so seamlessly because of that connection was really satisfying. Um, and the thing that was a con, I think, was their how quickly they glossed over the physical aspect of it. Because when Sansia and Berenice twinned, there was a lot of time and description taken to really drive that point home, that they were mentally linked, they were physically linked, they were emotionally linked. And with this, the group coming together, that disorientation that was happening was totally left out. And I think that's just a disservice to the really cool concept. Because you'd think with more people it would be more disorienting, and instead there was just like a one-liner of, "We're gonna touch you. It's gonna be easier."
Close your eyes. It's
Yep.
easier.
Oh
The
yeah.
less
Close
senses
your
that are
eyes. Like,
involved. Yeah. Yeah. This is where I felt like he wrote himself into a corner with his magic.
yeah.
Because yeah, as you're saying, they're trying to, especially like to break Cressides' whole hold on Gregor. I thought that was an interesting way of doing it, and like they'd
Mm.
even talked before about before Cressides took control of him about bringing Gregor into the group to try to
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because again, we learned the most about Gregor and this story. Like his unique ability is he can die and then he comes back.
Right.
And like he doesn't know what happens with that space he misses. He doesn't know how he reboots. But like this is a deal we find out that his mother made with Cressides, which is the reason she's the one bringing Cressides back. This is her holding up her end of the bargain. But also, it's an open-ended bargain because he still has control over Gregor because she hasn't paid the debt in full. I've liked all that part, but
Yes.
even so, before he takes control of Gregor, they have that talk, and kind of similar to what you were saying, he's worried his darkness is going to overshadow the
Yeah.
connection they have. He's worried about bringing him to the fold. Then when he gets stabbed with the dagger, another way of doing it. I thought that was nice. It
Yeah,
didn't
that
always
was
have to be
cool.
a pill. Cool. When he gets stabbed with the dagger and gets brought in, as you were saying, like not just the fact that he's breaking this godlike power hold over him, but now he's twinning with these two people that he knows and has a connection with, but he definitely still feels like he's holding secrets and stuff like that from what we see with his other interactions in this show, I almost said in the book. Uh all that goes so quickly. And then
Yeah.
again, also then they decide to bring Orso in it. Orso has this terrible wound in the shoulder from like a bolt or a rock or something went
Yeah.
fucking through him.
Yeah.
And they even talk
They're
about
like,
how it's like
don't even worry about it.
the dark brown stains are getting thick again and wetter and whatever. And then they
Infected.
twin him, and he's like, "Oh, I've got three sets of hands and three sets of eyes," and then he's like, "I'm in."
So he does strike me as a type that would get like ADD distracted by something like a cool scribing issue. So
Yeah,
I could see him himself being like, I am so focused on how cool this is that I'm gonna ignore my own pain. But that's not to say that the pain has stopped. It's not like being twinned with these people or combined with these people takes away that pain or the problem of it actually being infected. So he's still like not doing well.
yeah.
And like you said, you backed yourself into the corner where like you either have to deal with it or you just like pretend that it didn't happen at all.
Yeah, we completely abandon it. We don't
Yeah.
bring it up for the rest of our story.
Nope.
And there's no magical healing that happens by twinning with
No.
them. It's not like you can take their healthy bodies and
Nope.
fix him. And like to the point where they like almost have to carry him out of the compound. Just
And
as
then he goes off on his own and does his own thing later, like not that long after this.
Exactly. And that was my other issue with it. They talk about how even before you say it, they know it because of this connection, this great connection they have. And at the end, Orso
Bernice.
decides to sacrifice himself. And Berenice is like, "Where's he going? What? Where's he going?" And it's like, dude.
You should know because you can see through his eyes
But
and
then
hear
they
his
like
thoughts.
they even
And
bring up the point as he's rowing the boat away that he like reached a certain point where like he feels the connection dwindle. And I'm like, you
that's
shouldn't have
true.
brought that up because it reminds us that 5 seconds
That it
ago,
existed.
yeah, that they
Yeah.
should have known it. Shit, that reminded me of another one I wanted to complain about. Shit, it had to do with Orso, the magic coming and going. I don't know. Maybe I'll think of it. Maybe I won't. Um, oh, yeah. So the other cute little bow that we had in here was the fact that Valeria knows like everything that's going on. She can also talk to the scryings and all that stuff, but somehow she's not in on this internal monologue that they can have between each other.
That, oh my God, that was really annoying. Like, again, with the whole like, we can make reality whatever we want it, you can just write whatever you want, and it super doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, just the like again, just too cute where
Yeah.
you realize, oh, I made this like all powerful being, and even Crescides, where like he can like see all this different stuff, and like that was okay. I'll give you that. Where with he wasn't able to see Berenice because of the twinning
Oh, yeah.
Sansia, which gives her some of the
Yeah,
protection that
sure.
Valeria put on Sansia.
That
Okay,
one is
fine.
logical
Yeah,
to me.
that's fine. But
Yeah.
again, the communication part where you could tell he was probably just like, "Oh shit, I need some way for them to talk without the bad guys knowing what's going on. We'll
Right.
just like throw in this one sentence at some point early
We'll say
on."
there's a private chat.
Yeah, where Bernice is like, "I don't think she can hear us." They're like,
Yeah.
"Valeria." Nope,
Yeah.
we're good. That part didn't happen, but it sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that seemed accurate.
Yeah. So I like it was a neat idea. Again, the quick thinking, like the forming together to create Captain
Hmm.
Planet to do all the problem solving really quickly, especially to get through our boss battles,
Yeah.
okay, but also kind of eh. Uh yeah, it felt cheap in a way
It
as well.
did.
Like again, Bernice and Sansia fine, but once you bring the whole group into it, it's like it kind of dwindled.
In our D&D campaign where um with Charlie where our characters are fighting a beholder right now. And ages ago when we came into this dungeon, um somebody had cast I don't know, something where we have basically like a mental link. Like we can't like feel, it's not like that, but we have the ability to talk to each other without speaking out loud, which obviously has come in handy. But it's one of those things where you're like, plot hole wise, you're like, would I be like, I have to remember that I can say this to this person or whatever. It just, it can be a cool tool, but it can also get really messy. And then it also keeps you in a box.
Yeah.
And it was unsatisfyingly done in this situation.
Yeah, just it again, it kind of like what you're saying with the magic, it just became a wide open door that let them
Yeah.
get away with whatever. Oh no,
Yeah.
I thought of that because Berenice knows that, and Orso knows that, this thing. But not now, but this time, yes.
There's also like Berenice definitely was painted as somebody with a wealth of knowledge, and she's super clever and super she has really great abilities with, you know, the script, whatever, the writing of all of the code, so to speak. But they definitely also, I think, utilized her too much as like an actual computer, where they were like, pull up this information, and she was like, right, I remember reading this. Like they never establish that she had like an eidetic memory or anything like that, and yet it felt as though that was a call upon.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that she, when they're going out to the boat, she was like, wait, this reminds me of some
Mhm.
code that this string code that they meant for something else, but it'll definitely work for this, and I know exactly where it is in the library. Let me go get a refresher.
Yeah, or she'll like go quiet for a little bit and they're like, "Oh, she's like figuring it
She's
out." And it's like,
computing. Yeah.
yeah, again, sort of like I think you said it before, a little bit of like lazy writing, and that it felt as though you just you're not adhering to the rules that you yourself have set.
Yeah. And again, it's just interesting coming into the middle of this being more critical because
Mm,
you don't have that connection to the characters and being
sure.
like, oh, they're going to make it. I'm going to really nitpick this. I'm going to
Yeah.
point out somebody else's mistakes so we don't look at mine. So on that note, Gregor decides to sacrifice himself to merge with Valeria and become something new. What did you think of Gregor's arc, since it was the biggest one that we saw here, and kind of him becoming Trevane and what that entailed?
Yeah, so I mean, I think him sacrificing himself in that moment, it definitely like helped, with the situation that was happening at that time. And so I can appreciate that. That definitely aligns with kind of what we learned about Gregor in this book and his sort of protector status. Um, fucking leap before you link, like Leroy Jenkins level of just rushing in because it absolutely made things worse. And I don't think it was the right call.
Yeah, I mean
And
it.
I don't think that was all on him. Like I
Yeah,
don't I'm not blaming Gregor for that.
I think what bummed me out, and granted, it's mortal, maybe slightly augmented mortal,
Mm.
going up against a godlike capacity thing. But I still wanted a little bit more of Gregor to shine through. I
Yeah,
wanted it to be more than just Gregor's body that now Trevane is inhabiting,
yeah,
because there wasn't any of it. Like, even if it was just a little bit of restraint when it came to his friends, but they still
sure.
have that moment at the gates where he communicates with them and he's like, sorry, Sansia, like nobody can get out, and that means you. And like, we don't get into his connection, but obviously there's some backstory with the woman down at the docks. I forget her name,
Yeah.
who was
Somebody
like doing the mass exodus. And
yeah.
even for her, he's like, no, not you either. I mean, he doesn't talk to
Yeah.
her, but again, there's what part of Gregor was there? It didn't, the moment where he carries his mother's body and puts her in the river thing, I guess. But if he can do that, why couldn't he do
Ex
more?
yeah. Yeah. And her name is Polina.
That makes sense. Nice. Good find.
Um, yeah, I agree. I think that it overwrote all of it was a little Jamie Lannister level, like all of this character growth that presumably has happened over two books
Yeah.
is nullified by needing to get the story to progress to the point you needed it to go, I guess. I don't know. Maybe more of him will shine through, like given time. I don't know.
Yeah.
There is a third book.
Maybe he fights for control of himself.
Yeah.
He does have some experience with that. I will say, I thought it was great how well Bennett showed Gregor was still in there when Crescides was controlling him.
Mm,
When he talked about his physical, how
yes.
he was white knuckles and trying
Yeah.
to like fight it, how the tears were just streaming down his face as he was doing these things, like how he was still feeling the emotions, even though he physically could not stop himself from
Yeah.
following the orders of this madman, godlike creature. But we don't see any of that with Trevane, as
Right.
he just kind of completely, it seems, completely gives into that. I will say, and it makes it so much harder that the fact that he felt the need to put in that like half a second where Gregor removes the dagger from himself. And this is the first time he is himself. He is this new being that he has tried so hard to become because he's always known there's something wrong with him. And he's always had that like kind of dark cloud over him, and they broke the power that Crescides had on him. He knows his story now. But like to get there, he had to be connected with San and well, the rest Boundary Siders. So he gets that half second of clarity where he pulls that dagger out. He is himself, and then he takes the pill to dive right back into madness. Like it was like a beautiful moment that was immediately ruined. It's like, hey, he
Yeah.
finally got his time, and literally it was 1 second.
So I wrote this a couple of times in here that Gregor felt like a tool. Like
Yeah.
he was a tool of the author, also a tool of other characters, but just like he swooped in moments to just be sort of a deus machina for like whatever needed to happen, good or bad. And I felt a little redundant. I guess that's maybe a theme here. Um, that it kept happening and it kept being him that was at the taking the brunt of it, taking the fall, and that sucked because he was my favorite.
Yeah. And I think it was tough because this just felt like his story. And
Hmm.
I will say, I thought he not fumbled, but I thought he gave us, bread slices instead of breadcrumbs when it came to Gregor's story. Like the
Yeah,
fact that they saw those things with her mother with his mother at
yeah,
different times and couldn't put together what happened. Like the fact that her husband was physically abusing her, and obviously she manipulated the carriage so that her husband would die, but then wasn't expecting her two sons to be with him. So when they both died as well, she made this deal with the devil to save one of them.
yeah,
Like the fact that none of them really put that together, and then it was supposed to be this like moment at the end. It was like,
yeah,
no, man, that wasn't obvious at all. Wait,
yeah.
you're saying she was physically abused and then didn't mean to kill her children, and the fact that Gregor carried that anger with him that
Oh,
whole time, and like all
yeah,
it seemed. And I guess, not being in the situation, you don't know exactly how it works. But the fact that he like just couldn't see the forest through the trees, where like how much
yeah,
she loved him with everything she fucking did, was a little bit frustrating as well. But you had to
definitely.
hold on to that anger.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like absolutely misplaced anchor. So that was upsetting. I mean, I feel like Ophelia didn't really do herself any favors by A, making a deal with the devil and also doing shit like sacrificing hundreds of slaves to get your wishes, which I suppose you could argue that she cared about her son so much that she was willing to do something like that, but my girl.
Well, she had I think she had already signed the pact without him
Yeah, yeah,
going
no,
on.
she was in it. She was deep
So
in it.
yeah, I can't fault her for that. But obviously, Gregor's a child when the carriage accident
Yeah.
happens, and now he's
An
20,
adult.
30 something.
Yeah.
So decades have gone by. And like we can kind of get into her arc. That's what upset me about Ophelia. It seemed like she saw how dark her husband was and how obviously it affected her very personally, but it
Right.
sounded like she was one of those people that was going to buck the system and change it, at least on this little bit we learned about her, because she wanted to make a better world for her children. And
Right.
then Gregor obviously rebukes her and she just turns into this like, oh, same old, same old. I'm gonna do it like everybody else, except I also have this like debt to a god that I owe,
No big
which is
deal.
really gonna complicate things later on. Like that was kind of frustrating how maybe it's the wisdom that comes with old age, but how she just kept like looking out her window, be like, this isn't really what I thought it was gonna be. Maybe I
Yeah.
should do something.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like somebody who maybe had going into it some really grand ideas and then shit got fucked up, aka her kids, and the carriage situation, and then she kind of like lost focus enough to make some not great decisions.
Yeah,
But then the naivete of being like, how did we get here?
yeah. And then it just made like I don't know, her last moments there where so Gregor is given this command that he can't get out of, where if anybody comes in the room, he has to
I
kill
kill him.
them. And Ophelia knowingly does go into the room and he tries to stop himself, but he doesn't, he kills her. She stabs him with the dagger to break the spell and like free him. So it's like that nice moment, I guess, for her, even though she's dying. Uh, but like even that moment felt kind of I don't know, like maybe you could have like put the engravings on like a throwing star or something.
Or throw the dagger, or like, I don't know. Yeah, that felt a little fumbled as well, or like a little written in a way that he was taking you only in like there's only
He
this.
wanted a cinematic moment, it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do appreciate, or I did appreciate when um was it Berenice like is coming into the Dandolo estate and like happens upon Ophelia and she's like, here, you're here to do this, right? Like, let me help you.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish like I could see Ophelia kind of not coming around, but like aligning with what Orso and them are trying to do because it sounds like maybe that was her original vision. So it's kind of a bummer that it was right at the end that she was like, these are the people I should be working with or helping or whatever.
Yeah. I think what frustrated with me is I don't know why in the last 5, 10 years she knew where Gregor was,
Right.
obviously. Like we couldn't have just talked or something.
And she definitely seemed to be living in some sort of like Delulu state where she's like, I kept your room exactly
Yeah.
like girl,
Yeah.
so much has
Like when
happened.
you were an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, yeah. That she I mean, clearly she's damaged,
Yeah.
but
Well, just
um
obviously she had a connection with Orso. The fact that Orso and Berenice came from the Dandolo compound, they were both scribers for her, or whatever their situation was. Like there were so many connections there that it really felt like this could have went a very different way with just a little bit of that C word we used to talk about all the time, communication.
oh, that. Did they come from the Dandolo compound or did they come from the one that the mountain was part of?
No, because that's why Berenice knew how to get around so well. And remember, she knew where the key to the carriage was kind of situation. It was because they were from Dandolo originally.
Oh, I thought that Orso was from the place where the mountain was.
You are? Yeah, he did actually live in the mountain. You're right.
Maybe he left there and went to Dandolo's and that's how he and Barony.
Yeah.
We don't know. We
I
only
do.
read
Yeah.
the
I mean,
book.
I remember at least Berenice saying that she like
Mhm.
knew the layouts of the thing because they were there.
And they
I thought that's where
definitely
she had met Orso, but he could have worked in both. Who knows how this society
well, because
works?
he, like you said, he's older, so like
Yeah.
it makes sense to me that he worked at the other one and then
Yeah,
yeah.
because maybe the mountain one fell too, right? Because that was the Tribuno or whatever. I also
Yeah.
found the names all really weird. I'll be honest. I felt a little forced on that as well. Can't we
Mhm.
just get like the Smith compound? Whatever. Uh, it's just sometimes when you read certain names, like Morosini, it just like
The
trips me up just by
the
reading.
names didn't bother me. What bothered me was like Campo.
Campo,
I
yeah,
did not like that.
yeah. Just say compound. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the one in the mountain I think had fallen at one point or something.
Yeah,
Or
like it was basically derelict, I think.
yeah, even
Yeah.
before I think they blew it up in the first
Yeah. Yeah,
episode
yeah.
that we didn't read. Anyway, we're getting in the weeds about a book
Yeah, we
we're
are.
gonna read.
About who owns what.
And speaking of which, we kind of touched on it a little bit. But what did you think of the ending with Orso sacrificing himself to at least gain their freedom?
I mean,
Sure.
Bo. It was
Yeah.
Bo. All the things you mentioned before about the sort of plot holes with like the communication and that he was so grievously injured and now he's fine enough to go row a boat somewhere and do some not heavy lifting, but effectively do the thing that allows them to escape, and I just find that annoying.
So you know what I just realized? Because I didn't think of this till right now. He could have just turned the Imperium on and made it so the fucking harpoons didn't hit them and they could have
Yeah.
escaped the harbor.
Yep. He took the Imperia with him to the place that he was like, this is gonna work. And then it was like he was completely protected from the whatever ballistic stuff
Yeah.
they were firing at him.
And then he like sets off the lexicon again. This is where our hero who is trying to save the village destroys half the village just to try to kill the bad guy, I guess, and then fails at doing
But
anything.
didn't do that.
Yeah. That was frustrating how like it just left that open-ended where it was like, oh, they all survived. And literally until this moment, I didn't think about how I was like, oh, well, he did it so his friends could leave. Could have done that on the boat. Where
We
maybe
could have
if
all
that
just
mind
left.
sharing was working and he was like, oh, I got to do this to let you get away. They could have been like, hey, why don't we just turn the Imperium on and sail away?
Yeah.
Sounds like it might work for us.
Yeah. It does sound like that.
And we can
Also,
tell the other boats to like get close to us. So like
and we
work
can
for
just
them
make a
too.
little bubble
Just
of
make a bubble of like, we're not going to get fucked here.
yeah.
What a
Yeah.
dummy. What a worthless sacrifice.
For real. I also found it annoying that like none of the bad guys seemed to really even get thwarted like in any capacity really. Like Valeria got exactly what she wanted. I mean, she would have preferred to be twinned to Sansia or to take over Sansia's body, which was what she was suggesting would happen. Also, very much glossed over the whole like, by the way, Sansia, the stuff that Valeria put in your head
Oh yeah.
is killing you slowly. We're just gonna like, I'm sure that's a third book resolution issue, but I found that annoying that it was like all of this bad shit is happening and nothing is actually happening.
It was interesting because she's like, every time you use your power, it drains you a little bit, right? So what about when like Berenice was using the scribed vision? Like I think it's mostly the
Mm.
communicating with it, But like, well, she
Maybe it's
communicated with
only a
it too.
half drain.
Yeah, so like, what is that? Is Bernice paying that? I
Yeah.
did like that one. He had kind of given us the hint throughout where
With
she
like
talked
the
about
how
how she
cute.
was
I feel
feeling
so
so much
old.
older, and all that. So yeah,
Same,
okay,
bro. Same.
that was something. But yeah, the fact that yeah, don't fuck with gods because they're gonna fuck you over, I think is pretty much what it means
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
The last thing I had was just Crescidi's backstory. We could also touch on Clef here as well,
Yeah,
um,
that's
and their kind of whole yarn. What you thought about that
in
situation?
general, like who cares?
Fair.
Also I feel like we maybe were done a little dirty in terms of the second book thing with Clef in
Mm,
particular, because it sounds like, from what I read in some of the reviews, the relationship that Clef and Sansia have in the first book is really witty and entertaining and stuff, and like you only get snippets of it.
yeah.
And then when we discover like who Clef is to Crescides, I was like, I don't fucking care or really understand like why that make like wouldn't then that also make Clef the bad guy? And why are we still like I just I
Yeah.
didn't get it.
Who's in the wrong here? Because it's like that forbidden magic is to basically take somebody's soul and put it in an object, which Clef is like a
It
soul
is.
in a key,
Yeah.
is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But it's so Crescides is the one that's blamed for doing that. But then we learn in the backstory that Crescides is the sick kid and Clef is the dad. And
Right.
this was like a decision they came to together, I guess. But
But
Crescides'
maybe not.
situation was also fucking weird. So
But then like the time when Crescides had Clef and Crescides was all like butthurt that he wasn't talking to him,
yeah,
like that, I mean, I think that was in there to make you still believe that Crescides was the father in this
right.
situation.
And to be fair for Clef, he doesn't like remember, right? He doesn't
Right.
remember till the end, so it's not like he's being a dick, but he is. And like again, that snippet of how he calls Sand Kid, is kind of like leading to him being that father figure. A nice little touch there, but yeah,
I guess. But I also was like, I just don't understand like why it even like why it matters.
yeah.
Like, and if it does matter, I need a little bit more clarity as to who the fucking bad guy is and who's on what side. Like,
I know. I feel like this is leading up to a third book where Crescides, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, where like he was
sure, where
trying
they
to tell
team
them that
up.
whole time, like, hey, I'm not the bad guy.
And like and like Valeria's the bad guy and
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
It's to be fair, like they both are. I appreciated Crescides's thought process, where he's like, it's not just about weapons. It's not just like it's not people that will, whatever civilization gets weapons then wants to take over. Like he tells the story about the beans,
Technology, man.
where once they learn how to cultivate beans, now their soldiers can carry them, and that becomes an empire because your soldiers can be fed as they move, and they will take over more because they can. That's what you humans do. So he doesn't want to like he just wants to take away that part of you that wants to take control of other people, which sounds terrible when you say it. But again, Valeria's thing that she wants to do is kill 6 billion people. So there's only fewer tribes left that won't interact with each other. Get rid of all the magic or the scribing, whatever. So you're just savages left with your tools, and then you should be okay, at least for a little while.
So not for nothing, those two things feel effectively like the same goal. Valeria and Crescides's like game plan. Humans are shit
Mhm.
and absolutely are problematic and are going to fuck stuff up. No holds barred, like that is what they will do. And I totally like this is why I was like thinking there's a chance Crescides not the isn't the bad guy because his points are valid.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, when Valeria is like explaining what she actually is wanting to do and get rid of all the scribings, like, yes, it would set everyone back because this techno, it's like you said, it's like the Industrial Revolution. Like, this is how their society has evolved. But those two things are kind of not mutually exclusive. Like, the scribings have been used for evil in terms of oppression and all of that and the disparity between the rich and the poor and everything. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I just that also feels not unlike what the Foundry Siders are trying to do. It's like everybody's just going about it a different way, and it all feels like the same. I don't know, just have a freaking conference and come to some agreement how y'all can use your tool. Everyone should just get uh
The twinning.
connected.
Yeah.
Yep, everybody connect and just have a solid brain
And I
sesh.
think that's probably what the Foundry Siders are thinking at this point. If we connect everybody, people won't try to kill each other all the
Well,
time.
and that is something that I think when they were talking about it with Gregor, and he was like, wouldn't that be cool if like a society just had sort of the same,
Mind.
yeah, which is terrifying, but also I can understand the point of like everybody's working toward a similar goal kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a little too late. I mean, and yeah, like you were saying, Clef was another one kind of similar to Orso where it felt like we missed that story, that part of the story
Yeah.
completely,
Yeah.
by jumping into the middle of it. So I can see like that being a triumphant return for people who had read the first book, like, yay, Clef's
Sure.
back. But even still, it's not like he had a
But
huge, it
no, he
wasn't like
wasn't
there
really
was a
there.
ton of that back and forth,
Yeah.
but he is back with Sand leading into the third book and
Yep.
vocal again. So if that is something you liked in the first, I'm sure it's something that they draw upon in the final chapter of the trilogy. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on here?
I did not.
Yeah, I think we totally covered a book we mildly understood because we jumped in the middle of a story. So there's that, folks. So well, on that note, we are going to move out of spoilers and moving out of spoilers. Not yet done with the book. We have to give it our grade. We do this based on the D&D D20 scale. So 0 or 1 is bad and 20 is good. And then we add or subtract a characteristic modifier, ability or skill from the game Dungeons and Dragons that we think's best fits our story. We alternate every episode. This time it is my turn to go first. And for me, I'm giving this a little bit of a break because I fucked up and put us in the middle of a story that we knew nothing about. So I can't judge it as harshly as I normally would, and definitely got felt less involved in it as the story continued. And that's not really its fault. That's my fault for putting us here. So I'm gonna just go right down the middle and give this a 10. I can see where other people, especially if they read the first book, might enjoy it. The second book in a series is always a hard plane to land, because it just seems like you're trying to get from, like you said, point A to point C, and this is our middle ground. So I did appreciate the kind of arc we got with Gregor. I think there was a lot of plot points that we got that probably people were hoping for. I liked the beginning of the book. Like I wish this was more of a heist situation
Mm.
rather than the mortals versus two god powers are getting in the middle of them situation that it ended
Yes.
up being. I kind of wonder if the first one would have been more fun because you
Mm.
did have Valeria involved, but she seemed to be more of a help at that point.
Right.
You weren't dealing with Crucides. I don't know what the bad person was in the initial, but it did sound like it was more of a Robin Hood type setup, similar
Yeah.
to the kind of opening heist in this book. So, um, I if I hadn't read this, I'd be interested in going back. Like I feel like it kind of put a sour taste in my mouth where I'm like, we
Is
all
it
make
worth it?
mistakes.
No.
We all
Yeah.
make mistakes. Let's move on. The TBRs are already too long. We don't need to add 2 books to it. I totally punted on this and I gave it a +1 for Arcana,
Yeah.
just because the tech side of magic and that. But in our discussion, I'll say it definitely opened my eyes to more things that I felt like he kind of missed on and like he leaned
Mm.
on it. And like we talked about, or like you mentioned, Gregor being kind of the catalyst for a lot of things, both in the story and for the author. It was like, oh, we need something here. Gregor comes in. Cool. The tech comes in, or the magic, whatever. And yeah, so I like the idea of scribings, and I liked Sand's communication with them and kind of her unique abilities. So I'll give it a point for that. Um, but yeah, overall, this was just a fumble by me, and now we're all paying for it. So
Mm.
overall, it's an 11. It'd be interesting if we had read Foundry Side, how we would feel differently. But
Yeah.
here's where we are, folks. So yeah, an 11 from me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I gave it an 11 straight roll because I think um the sort of magic system and the creativity around that was really impressive. Um, the logic of it, I think, is really neat and new and different. I do think that the characters have potential, and I think if we'd read the first one, maybe we would feel a little bit closer connection or more investment. But I think overall, um, some of it was brought down by it being the second one that we jumped into, and some of it was brought down by what we were talking about before with kind of that plateaued or repetition or um, just we got to get from this to the next thing, and it's kind of just the filler space. Which I think is just kind of any second book. Even if you had read the first one, that can happen.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, maybe my feelings would be different, but perhaps not. Maybe I would be disappointed in it anyway. Um, and then I am also giving it a +1 for Arcana because that's just so obvious. Again, though, I think the magic system aspect that he's built here is very impressive and very different. I mean, I think the closest approximation is the Blood over Brighthaven stuff, and that was even different from this. I think there are pitfalls to this kind of wide open door, like we were talking about, but I think he, for the most part, navigated them well. Um, it does get complicated when you have such a complicated system, but um, yeah, I think overall, um, I could see it being something people were are invested in for sure, like as a trilogy, like as a
Yeah.
whole set. Um, yeah, 12 total.
Read the jacket, folks. That's what we're learning here, especially when
To be
jumping into.
fair, it's not that obvious that it's a second book. Like it
Uh,
is like,
and
even the jacket.
the fact that there was two copies of it and there wasn't anything else by this guy in my bookstore, I was like, okay, it must be.
Well, and the front of mine says like by the author of Foundry Side. That means nothing. That doesn't mean
Yeah,
it's the first book. That's just another
right.
book that they've written. So like
I
I also would not have picked up on any clues about it for
just
sure.
just read the jacket.
I mean, I'm saying that just reading the jacket would still have landed you in this same spot.
No, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It just gives me another box to check before I
Yeah.
pick up a book. Although I just told us a bunch of books to pick out, and I didn't look into any of them. But I think
It's
we're
fine.
okay. I
It's
think
fine.
we're okay. So yeah, so overall that's an 11 and a half. Again, a little bit of an asterisk on this one because
Mhm.
yeah, it's the second book in a series. Nice job, Russ. But yeah, the book was Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. And if you want to get into this, maybe try Foundry Side first and let us know how that is. So,
I mean, Goodreads has a lot of good things to say about him. So,
so did the people on the back of the book.
yeah.
Again, that should be criminal,
That
okay?
I agree.
You
That
know,
is,
it
he
pr
doesn't have those same quotes that yours does.
Hmm.
So I was
Yeah.
confused when you'd mentioned Tamara Pierce and stuff because mine doesn't have those, but it also doesn't say anything aside from the by the author of Foundry Side. It doesn't say anything about Foundry Side.
And to be fair, like the paperback, which also when I was listening, when I was editing the last episode, the fact that I couldn't think of the word paperback was like, you got the soft copy, and I got the hard copy.
Also, not for nothing, like in the also
Yeah.
by, it's not in like a
Yeah,
uh
it's not like trilogies or
it's not
whatever the
yeah.
series is. Yeah. So I'm gonna blame them.
I think that's
Yeah, so read Foundry Side. Let us know how it goes, and then
valid.
listen to this and tell us what we got wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. So moving away from the book, we're not yet done with the podcast. We go to our segment section. We start with current selection. Taja, what else have you been reading lately?
Still reading The Separation of Church and Hate. I'm about 50% done. It's very good. It's very um he's a comedian, so he has some really like fun, snarky things to say, but he's also very knowledgeable when it comes to scripture. So he's really pulling from the real thing. And yeah, it is interesting. Um, I'm I'm not sure how far through, probably pretty far through Butcher's Masquerade of the Dungeon Crawler Carl. I think that's book 5 or 6. I don't remember which one. We're getting towards the end because I think there's only 7 out right now. So, um, but yeah, I'm still really liking it. It's just really entertaining to listen to. There have been some moments where I've like gotten emotional. Um, well, they that's like one of the things when we read the first book that I was
Yeah.
saying is that it is a fun read, but it's also got such depth of like strength of character and just sort of underdog story and like fighting the system and that kind of thing that I really enjoy.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny because my phone listens to you more than me. John Fugelsang is now like all
Mm.
over my
Oh boy.
Instagram as well. And I saw a thing with Matt Dinneman the other day, and he's like, it's great that people keep finding the series and reading it. And the one thing I've learned is the more people who read your book, the more people who hate your book. And that the people who hate it are more likely to let you know. And he's
Oh
like, it's just
yeah, for
something you kind
sure.
of gotta like let it go. Because it's a lot. But
Yeah.
uh I didn't did he ever say or do we know how many books there's gonna be?
I want to say 10, but I'm not sure if I'm pulling that out of my ass.
That's the number I jumped on too without having
Okay.
any idea.
Yeah, I don't remember where I would have. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we have to listen to our own podcast to hear
Yeah.
what we said. For me, I've started the week by finishing the third book in the Silo series, which is called
Oh yeah.
Dust by Hugh Howey. Um, I liked where we ended. It felt like we knew where we were going the whole
Mm.
time, and we just took forever to get there.
Oh, that's
Um,
frustrating.
so like I liked where the plane landed, but
Well,
it
the
just
trip
felt like
wasn't great.
there was like a lot of squiggles in the maze that we
Mm.
could have just
You had
avoided.
to divert to a different airport.
Yeah, it again, like the idea of Shift, the second book, taking us back into more like how the silos were created and dealing with that side of things. And we learned more about Solo's journey and
Hmm.
Silo 17. I thought that was all great. The
Hmm.
problem is then the last book was all about we had now the people in the kind of creators that we learned about the original kind of settlers or whatever from
Hmm.
Shift. Then we had Silo 17 and Solo's story, and then we had Juliet's story and Silo 18. So like we just kept slowly working our way towards our ending, but like doing
Yeah.
it where like this is happening and this is happening in this silo and this is happening in this silo and they're all reacting to the same thing and like
Right.
um so yeah, as that like continued to go on, I like didn't, but I wanted to be like, oh, let's skip ahead.
Mm.
But yeah, so I was happy where it ended. It just took a little bit longer to get there than I probably wanted. And after I finished Shorefall, which took me a little bit longer to read than I'd be honest to let you know,
Mhm.
just again.
The print was really small.
No, and I felt like a balloon again, just kind of like
Yeah.
looking above it, being like, "Ah, I have to pick that book up again." Um, I was looking at my TBR and I realized there's another series I haven't finished. So I picked up the third book, which I already had, of the School of Mance series, which is the Naomi
Oh,
Novak one.
yeah.
So that's the Golden Enclaves, which is I had read, I forget what the Last Graduate, I think was the second book.
Yeah, that
Again,
sounds
these were
right.
like they came. I always keep an eye out for the books they're the series we start reading, if they're
Hmm.
used or
Yeah.
whatever, and give them a shot. So the second book I remember being like, yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great,
Yeah.
but it was fine. And so the third book, I was like, sure, why not? I'm about 100 pages in, and sure, why not? We'll see where it goes. I mean, I do like Naomi Novik's writing, so
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah.
And I don't hate the story. Like, I'm interested to see where it goes. It just was never going to be like, I need to
I
read
must.
this.
Yeah.
So again, this trying to close another series
Yeah. Good
before
for
the end
you.
of the year. So I'll report back on that one next time. Moving on, we have random recommendation. This one is one I read a while ago. It's the second time recommending this author, but it's been like 40 episodes maybe since I did. So deal with it, folks. This book was Dark Sacred Night by Michael Connolly, an author a lot of people know, crime writer, thriller, very exciting. This was another book. So it's funny. I like judge the people of my small town because we have that sharing shack at our dump where we can give books and shit. There's always a ton of Michael Connolly. So this was just one that popped up and grabbed my attention, which was interesting because it's actually the first time he melds two of his most popular series together. So it is book 2 in the Renee Ballard series, but book 21 in his famous Harry Bosch series. And it's the first time Ballard and Bosch work together, and Ballard is this female detective who works the late shift and finds Harry Bosch going through like cold case files. Like, who the fuck are you, old man? And long story long, they start looking into a cold case file of the murder of a 15-year-old runaway girl, and it kind of spirals from there. And like I was looking at, this was back when I was still doing Twitter notes for all the books I read, and it was like, oh, it's a fun portrayal of crime solving with twists and turns involved. So if you like crime reading, you'll like this book. So, thank you, past Russ, for writing my little blog there. So again, it was Dark Sacred Night by Michael Connolly. Both those series continued after that. So you can check that out, or maybe you already had. Just a kind of a proven writer. But guys, come on, 106 episodes. We're going to tell you what we can tell you.
Yep.
And on that note, we have one last thing to get to, which is a name I've been worried about pronouncing this entire time. But what is on the next podcast? And this was one I came across. I went through Goodreads and was trying to find new books for us with that were highly recommended. I forget. I think it was based on my reading or something. I forget how this came up, but there's like ways you can sort Goodreads to look through stuff. And this was one that popped up. It seemed interesting. The book is called I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys? I don't know. There it is. It's beautiful. The thing I'm going to pull from it is it's as educational as it is thrilling. The power of I Must Betray You is it doesn't just describe the destabilizing effects of being spied on, it will make you experience them too. It is a historical fiction based in Romania in 1989, when it's like a communist regime overlooking everybody and spying on everybody, and it deals with a 17-year-old trying to survive. So just one that came across that sounded really interesting. No experience with the author or anything, but it's been a while since we did historical fiction, so figured we'd give that a try. So once again, it's I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, Sepetys, for that last name. Maybe I'll get a pronunciation by the time we have to record. So that means this is the end of this episode, as that will be on next episode. So thank you guys for hanging in there. Welcome to Russ's shit show of surprise books, where you choose the second in a trilogy because you're a dummy.
No.
I'm glad we all got to experience that together, and now we can mock me forever. So this has been the first episode of Mistakes on the 106th episode of the ABC Pod, the Adult Book Club, with Russell and Taja. What? With Taja and Russell. Keep reading.
Oh shit!
I was too busy laughing. With Taja and Russell. Keep reading. Yeah, that was the ending.